Welcome to Flesh and Pod, a flesh and blood podcast, breaking down weekly news and notes from the tournament scene, community drama, game strategy, and more. And now, here are your hosts, Derek and Logan.
Hello, and welcome to, what is this, episode 132? Yeah, 132 of Flesh and Pod. My name's Logan. I am your host. With me, as always, is, I don't know, what's your show name today? Undefeated against Spurlocks. Derek Oswald. Okay.
The one time you check it?
The one
Beautiful.
time I check it. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Okay. Yeah. I guess that is valid. You are undefeated against Spurlocks. But now that Mama Spurlock has top 8'd a Comp REL event by top 8ing the ProQuest Plus in Vegas today. There were 2 Spurlocks in the top 8.
Yeah.
And I know I've said it on this show before, but yeah, the scary part is that Brody's mom, just as good, might be better. But he had to learn it from somewhere. And apple tree, not far. Derek, did you do anything in Flesh and Blood?
I have lost more games than I would like in testing to prepare for Minneapolis this next weekend. And as we were talking about before we started recording, that means I have narrowed my deck choice down to 5 possible options. Because
5 is a bigger number than I have.
I'm fighting between what I'm comfortable on, what looks fun, and what I think is good right now that I'm willing to play. I have to put that caveat because, like, I don't own a ton of Illusionist stuff, and I'm just not willing to, like, pick up Enigma or whatever, so it's like, do I want to play a ninja, whether it's, you know, Zen or Katsu or whatever, because I've tried both quite a bit, or do I want to play an assassin? Because I'm comfortable on Arachne and Uzuri. And they have their positives. They're not in terrible spots, but they do have some pretty polarized matchups. And the problem is I expect those to be well represented this weekend. Do I want to play New because she's fun? Even though I don't know if it's just because it's my short time testing compared to the other two, but so far, now that I've actually got like more games on her, and now that other people are more accustomed to playing against New, as opposed to like when the set first came out, I actually feel like she might be the weakest of the 3, at least right now in a vacuum. Because I think so far my analysis is I think that you're just better off if you want to go full fatigue game plan playing Arachne. I think he's just better at it. New, you have some access to additional banishes, obviously on her hero ability and then on mask if you do decide to run it. But then also having to run the chi to activate those can become clunky because you don't block as well, and you have to arguably have some low powered turns to set it up. Yes, she's got some very playable blues. It's not impossible, but there is a trade-off there. And I don't think that people value enough Arachne's ability to like influence your opponent's draws as well, especially when you're in the fatigue game plan, because part of surviving long enough to fatigue your opponent is making sure they don't draw their like best cards, and him messing with people's draws actually helps quite a bit with that. So far I don't think you can play her straight fatigue, which then means, okay, well, now she's kind of competing with Uzuri with the more aggressive, right? And I think that Uzuri offers just better overall rates, even though it's more predictable. So the benefit of New is obviously she's built around attack reactions, and your opponents know that, and so you're trying to catch them, essentially, right? And when you can do that successfully, it feels really good. And then when you run into competent players who can either adequately predict what you're trying to do, or at least hedge their bets enough where they reduce the impact of it, it starts to feel a whole lot less impactful. And that's what I'm running into, right? So I think that she's still good enough to see play. I think she's very fun. And I do think that there is a high quality deck in there somewhere. I don't think that I've had enough testing to realize the quote unquote true potential yet. And so that's the problem. It's like, do I pick the fun new deck? Do I pick stuff I'm comfortable with? Or do I roll with Ninja because it's the deck I'm the most comfortable playing into Enigma right now? I think Riptide's in a great spot. If I had more reps on Riptide, I would honestly consider him as well.
Yeah,
I just don't have enough time.
I don't know. About the only thing I did was open a cold foil Mask of Recurring Nightmares. It's very pretty, in case you were wondering.
I wasn't. Thank you.
Oh, okay. I didn't know.
Yeah.
I thought that maybe you weren't aware. I wasn't.
No, it's all right.
Okay,
it's fine.
Just making sure. I have an extra one. I have two, not two extendeds, just the one cold foil.
Right.
But I have two masks, so if you needed to borrow one, you could. I don't know.
So
if you own one.
here's my other hot take. If you're playing aggressive new, I don't think you even play mask.
Okay. I don't know. I know fuck all about Assassin.
I firmly believe that if you're trying to play new aggressively right now, or at least what I'm having more success with is still just running Traverse, because it turns out that card is really good. And
Shocking.
then you run less overall chi, like 4, maybe 5 tops. And then you just rely on using her hero power for big turns after you've banished a bunch of stuff, as opposed to, again, if you're going a more fatigue route or a disruptive route, obviously mask is important because you peel a card from their hand. Activating her hero power a bunch is just free banish from their deck if you're trying to fatigue, right? But if you're trying to play her aggressively and then all your on hits, and obviously when they block with attack actions and whatever as well, you're going to get that natural banish kind of throughout the game. And so if you can flip one chi and then on a crucial kind of late game turn, you get your block, you guarantee that you have it, you turn on the hero power, you play some stuff for free. That for the aggressive version does seem to work better. So
yeah, I don't know. I've messed around a little bit. I am either going to just play a Zen build of some sort, Kasai because reasons, or I'll just say fuck it and play Prism and just hate myself, just like drag myself into the lobby of the convention center every round and just throw up into one of the fake plants. That's the other option, because I think that Prism's in a decent spot.
I think Prism's in a great spot, and I expect her to have less representation than Enigma, but a better conversion rate.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that, but
because I think it's kind of a forgot about Dre moment. In fact, I also wouldn't be surprised if somebody does very well looping Arclight Sentinel, because people have we go through this cycle where somebody does the loop and they win an event and people are like, oh, this is a problem and it's broken. And then a month goes by and people forget, and then it wins another event and people are like, oh my God. And then we just had a new set drop and there's not only just new heroes, but a new illusionist in town and it's doing well. And so I think people are kind of forgetting. And so I'm just saying I'm seeing an awful lot of sideboards that don't have ways to produce action points lately. And I think people forgot. So I would not be shocked if Prism did well. I would not be shocked if Riptide did well. And I would not be shocked if either Enigma or Zen did well, obviously, from the new stuff.
Yeah, let's just jump into the news of the week at this point in time. We did have 2 Battle Hardens, and I don't know if Singapore had a ProQuest Plus. I didn't see anything on it. I know that Vegas did, and I chased down the results for that before we recorded. So Battle Hardened Las Vegas was won by, and stop me if you heard this, was won by Brody Spurlock on Azalea. So shock of no one. And the top 8 for that event was 3 new, 2 Azalea, 2 Zen, and a Kano. And it was actually Azalea, it was Brody on Azalea beating Kano in the finals. So that's a lot of moving parts. Let's start with the fact that no illusionists. So no Enigma, no Zen. Warrior seems to be kind of gone, which sort of makes sense. It's the matchup against Enigma is very difficult. The matchup against Zen, if they pop off, is very difficult. The matchup against New isn't so bad because your New's hero power doesn't do anything outside of banishing. Because you're not playing anything. It just doesn't do anything.
Right.
The Azalea matchup is winnable. That's not that big of a deal. The Kano matchup is miserable and virtually impossible. So there are a lot of like more polarized decks right now that present a better than 50-50 matchup into most things or a decent amount of things, whereas Warrior's just a 50-50 deck most of the time. So right now, it certainly feels like Warrior's a little bit pushed out. I was very surprised to see 3 new sitting in the top 8 with no Enigmas. Like, that seemed weird to me. But regardless, 5 of the top 8 being Mistveil heroes is something to keep an eye on because they're talented. Weird. And Azalea's really good right now just because of how punishing it is against Zens with Red in the Ledger. I mean, a Zen's not going to be able to do anything about a 13 power dominated Red in the Ledger outside of shoving unmovables or something crazy into the deck to just try to mitigate that. Kano is Kano. I mean, what are you going to do?
Pretend he doesn't exist.
Arcane damage isn't real and can't hurt me. Yeah. So is there anything about that, like about that top 8 that stood out to you? I mean, for me, it was the 5 Mistveil heroes.
I mean, it's not so much the 5 Mistveil because 2 Zens doesn't really surprise me. The 3 new is definitely a surprise, and it makes me want to know what the full spread was. Because I'm wondering if it was just a case of like that was maybe the most represented hero, or maybe the things that would prey on new were not as represented. Noah's not there on Enigma.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like
that's fair. Like Noah was bike riding for charity.
Right. So I would like to know more because just at face value that does surprise me because again, my experience so far, it's not that new is bad, it's just that I'm not wowed enough to be like, I would expect to see 3 of her in a top 8. 1 maybe, sure, I think that you could expect to see 1 just assassin in general, whether it's a new or an Uzuri or whatever, but 3 either says to me that the heroes that would prey on it on players good enough to pilot them were missing, or that a lot of people didn't have a lot of time playing against her. So the other side of new is that again, her entire thing when she's doing what she's supposed to do, when she's done well, is that your opponent struggles to know what you are going to do, and then you punish them for guessing wrong. And so it also could just be entirely that this was a room full of players that didn't test enough against new.
They're called Guardian players. Yeah,
could be that. Or others though. I mean, legitimately, Azalea ended up winning, but Ranger is, or Azalea specifically, because Riptide usually has the traps, so that he's got the D-reacts and he's fine. But like Azalea specifically is one where, she can fire these really tall arrows, but she's not really going to do anything beyond the initial blocking and doesn't have a ton of armor to help her either. And so if you run into Azalea's not named Brody Spurlock, for example, you could probably do pretty well on new. There's also luck involved. So the other interesting thing about new, right, is that even when you're on the aggressive game plan, like I was saying before, the banish is a side effect. And so sometimes you could be like, you're pumping damage, but then when you banish the top card of their deck because you've connected, it's like, oh, there goes your Art of War, or there goes your Codex of Frailty, right? And so you can just kind of get lucky. The same way that I was saying, like, Arachne does really well with denying draws. New can technically do it. It's just not as intentional because it's going to be like a blind shot at it. So, new doing well isn't a surprise. 3 news is a surprise to me.
Yeah, two Zens wasn't a surprise. Two Azaleas wasn't a surprise. A Kano, it just seems like there's always a fucking Kano. Like, I don't know. It just always feels like at some point in time, Kano is just going to bubble up. And I believe this was Alex Vor. So, sure, one of the Kano Council, it feels like, showing up and rearing their head, and okay, fine, I get it. But I don't know, like with this one, I feel like this is definitely not going to be the spread at Nationals. Like this ain't it. And I guess we'll talk about that a little bit later, but to me, this was just a little bit of a one-off odd one. And I'm interested to see what what the hero spread was, if we ever can find out, because of new doing well. But I don't know. Like, we'll see. Because, like, if you look at you go down to because, like, we have a ProQuest Plus the next day. So that was today. We're recording on Sunday. That was won by Barrett Goss, a.k.a. Vishra, friend of the show.
Yep.
On Prism.
I was going to say, he's probably on an Illusionist, but...
Yep. On Prism. And that one was Prism. The top 8 was Prism, Zen, again, 2 Azaleas, Katsu, KO, Dash, and a new. So new still there, as is Zen, and still 2 Azaleas, but Katsu made it through. So we're talking earlier about a Crouching Tiger Katsu deck. I wonder if that's what we saw there. KO, is KO even good? Like, I mean, everybody's real worried about it for a minute, but
KO is good, and I would also not be surprised if a KO does well either at Nats or the Calling. KO is just not as good as he was before Part the Misveil, right?
Sure.
And I do think that might have been why, the last time we did like banned and restricted stuff and whatever, that Kano wasn't touched or not Kano, KO, excuse me. The yes, not the no. KO wasn't touched as much as I think people hoped, because there was a time when people were like, this is like, oppressive, this is stupid, this is blah, blah, blah. I think that still very, very capable hero, very consistent. It's just that we got some new heroes added that both are capable of some pretty flashy big turns. One of them does so while also being defensive, and the other one does so while going incredibly wide, and those two things can cause problems for KO. KO is still as good against all of the heroes that he was already good against before. We got some new contenders. So he's fine, and if somebody kind of like wins matchup roulette, they could easily do well.
Sure, but it kind of feels like and we'll get this later, but there are some heroes I'm surprised I'm not seeing as much. But this, looking at this type of top 8, you're just gonna go, oh, okay, Prism's path through this top 8 is pretty good. Zen can be a problem. And then maybe KO draws the right half of their deck, the one that actually has poppers in it. But they play a lot of 5s.
Yeah.
And then
and sometimes 6s aren't even good enough.
No, because you have Heralds and you have a Figment that reduces them. So K, like, that can go sideways very fast. Dash has some number of 6s, but if you're keeping them from their game plan or the Glock lock or whatever, or you just get them under ALS for a couple of turns and they don't have a high octane, then you get to just kind of farm them a little bit. And then if I'm looking at News Path in this top 8, News Path in this top 8 is very bad.
Yeah.
Like, none of this is what New wants to see. Maybe the KO. Like, you can get some sick ones off KO.
Yeah.
But that's it. And if I was actually sent, I sent, I don't think he'll mind, I actually sent a message to Vishra once I saw he was in top 8 and said, when you're done winning this gold foil, can you please send me the hero breakdown for the ProQuest Plus, please? And then I didn't get a response from right away. Then an hour later, I said, well, it looks like I was right at least. And then he just sends back King. I'm like, yeah, always had it, never didn't. But he did post the... he did end up posting the matchup spread. Let me find it really quick for the top 8, like what was matched into what. So hold please while I do this live, because that's what we always do, is do this live. Okay. So it was the top 4. So he beat Katsu in the top 4. And then he either played against a Dash or a Nu in the finals. So that would tell me a Nu got paired against Azalea and won. Which, if they banish the right cards,
yeah,
I can see that.
Not surprised. Like I was just saying, not a ton of defense reactions there. Not a lot of like armor to support your overblocks.
Yeah, yeah. So yes, that's interesting to me that, and Dash, Dash did well. Dash also beat an Azalea, which, okay, sure. Dash can put up some giant damage turns. They can make action points off of High Octane. They can't get out under a Retinal Ledger that way, but they can manufacture some very large turns. So that's not that surprising. Yeah, okay, that all makes sense.
Yeah.
And Prism, again, I think Prism's a pretty good choice, just overall right now. To the point that I would consider playing it, but only if I was like wanting to punish myself. Only if I was wanting to punish myself, make Ezreal right, and have to vomit after every round. That's the parts, because Ezreal was calling me out on Twitter after I got my Esser, the judge from Germany. He does stained glass art on playmats. And so he did a stained glass on Kasai for me as a playmat. I think I might have it close at hand. Yeah, my body doesn't work right now because of golfing. So people who are on video can see it. But it's very pretty. I very much so like it.
I mean, it's going to look beautiful with all of those Prism cards on it.
I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't hurt her like that. Are you kidding? No, that would just go on the Flesh and Pod mat because reasons. Wait,
you would disgrace our show?
Yeah. Yeah, I've been disgracing the show for 132 episodes. Why wouldn't I? But so Esther, I say, like, it's beautiful, thank you. And Ezra is like, yeah, nice warrior, nice Kasai mat for confirmed illusionist main Logan Peterson. I'm like, no. He's like, didn't you win a pro quest with it? I'm like, no, I won an armory. And he's like, counts. I'm like, shit. But not an illusionist main. Will never be an illusionist main. You cannot make me. But
that sounds like the sort of thing an illusionist main would say.
You're the one that wanted to be a cop growing up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted to be an illusionist player too, because they have all the prettiest cards and the coolest marvels, but
they kind of do have the coolest marvels.
They do, because they have the most. Like, it's not even close. Yeah. You get the heralds, you get the dragons, you get
all the mystics,
the figments.
Yeah. Enigma New Moon.
Yep. Enigma New Moon. Enigma has the ability to play all the cheat cards. Those are all gorgeous.
Yeah, the Japanese Enigma Marvel that exists, that's Japanese only. Yeah, fucking illusionists. They just get everything handed to them on a silver platter. This is bullshit.
They are the main character, it would seem.
Yeah, that's what it feels like. Any rate, there was the other side of the globe. Things looked way different because Battle Hardened Singapore was it was won by Brian Kong on Dash, Inventor Extraordinaire. We're all confused as to how Dash continually just wins events in Asia. Asian event, event in Asia, pencil in Dash. They're going to win. That seems consistent at this point. And this top 8 looked vastly different. So in this one, we have 2 dashes. Notice that in Vegas, in 2 top 8s, we had 1. A Victor, 0. A Zen, 3, so plenty. An Enigma, so here's Enigma for the first time. Dorinthia, because, and then 2 KOs. That is wildly different.
It's wildly different, but it's honestly what I would have expected from an Asian event just based on previous history, with one exception. The only thing that's a surprise to me here is the Victor. And not just because of the region, but also just like looking at what's in the rest of this top 8 and thinking about what else was likely in the field. Like, I don't know how that Victor survived.
Win a lot of trounces.
Because like Victor doesn't want to run into Dash, really doesn't want to run into Enigma.
If it's Axe's Dorinthia, does not want any part of that.
Probably not. Can do okay into like KOs, probably okay into Zens, depending on what your disruption package is. But I mean, the tools are there. So maybe that was it. Like maybe they just expected a lot of Ninja and they were like, okay, Spinal Crush is still pretty good, and so on and so forth. So yeah.
But
yeah, maybe I've narrowed it down to 6. Maybe I do just want to bring Bravo. Spinal Crush is a hell of a card.
You don't want to bring Bravo. Like, don't get hurt by news. Like, I don't want that for you. I don't want...
I would eat a new.
I mean, if they... Would you?
Yeah, they can't do go again shenanigans through Spinal Crush either.
No, but they can tear asunder crippling or cranial crush you from your own banish zone.
Sure, if they can take more than one action.
Sure. I mean, you got to crush them first.
Yeah.
All right.
And then they go to my discard pile, and then they got to figure it out from there.
I mean, there are cards that banish from your discard pile.
I am aware. I'm just saying they have to work for it. I'm not going to give it to them for free. Okay, they do have to work
for it. It's not free. Okay, that's fine. So the shocks here to me are the Dorinthia. We do have a listener question, I think, that is directly analogous to the Dorinthia doing well. We've already talked through KO. Enigma finally showing up in one of these. I have opinions on that. The 2 Dash and the Victor, like Victor again, I agree. I think Horse is a bit of an outlier here. Dash is just what I expect.
Yep.
Coming out of an Asian event. They love playing Dash over there, and they're very good Dash players in general. So it's interesting, and it's good. I think this makes me think that the national season globally is going to be fascinating, because we're going to see some weird shit, and I love weird shit. This also puts Dash another step closer to the LL plateau. So yeah, if you're a Dash main, you're probably a little nervous now. Sorry, Rachel.
If you're a Dash main, you need to be getting in touch with our good boy Ben to learn how to play Max, because that's probably going to be your next best bet.
I think Max's problem is he needs 1 more X. He only has 2. He needs 3. If they just would have put 3 X's in Max, he'd be so much better.
Yeah.
That's my thought. I don't know what else. Like, that's the only thing I can think of. But this, no news, no assassins, no azaleas, no Kanos.
No prism.
So no prism. So it's. I am very interested in that matchup spread as well, because it seems like they just wouldn't have walked into the same environment or even close to it. But good on Brian for taking that down. Congrats. And I did watch because the finals was Zen Dash, and I did watch that, and it was a max velocity turn that buried the Zen player. And I was just like, I'm not sure you can win from a spot where they're at 21 and you're at 5. Like, that seems kind of untenable. Like,
what are you talking about? They got them right where they want them.
Yeah. They they did actually have a nice little spot to come back. The problem was there was a high octane turn involved, so the Zen player was able to make a Zen state and shrink everything.
That's gross.
Right. But the pop gun shot like 5 times. So 1 apiece 5 times is still 5 damage.
Yeah.
Plus everything else that was attacking that turn. So even through the Zen state, I believe like 12 to 15 was presented.
So they had the Zen state, but they didn't have the warmongers to back it up.
Right. Well, and they also drew, I believe, 1 or 2 chi that turn. No, they drew 2 no blocks, because they had to blow those to make the Zen state off of the 12 pedal. It was a really good job by the Zen player to try to find a corner to turn, but the high octane just was too much, and they had the resources to keep firing the gun with the Teklo Foundry Heart and everything else. And it was just like, yeah, you're going to 1, and if you can't eat cards out of the Dash player's hand, this is over. And that's what happened.
Yeah.
But the Zen state was gross. It was very, very well timed. It just wasn't quite enough in that situation. But if you are interested in looking at like what that kind of match plays like, I think it was a good example overall. Because the max velocity turns the Zen player is taking damage.
Yeah. I mean,
the
Zen player doesn't want to block to begin with.
No, if it's Zen player, if it's vanilla damage, you're kind of just taking it and hoping to present more back.
It's just hard to do that after a good high octane turn.
Yeah, and a max V turn on top of it, like a max V turn, then a high octane turn. Like, woof. That's very difficult to navigate. Moving on-ish, we do have U.S. Nationals and the Calling Minneapolis this weekend coming up. We'll both be there.
Yay!
It's the first time we'll be in the same room together. God, it's been a while, hasn't it?
Since the cruise.
Yeah, it's been since January. So that's 5 months. 5 months of no Charmer in my life?
Yeah.
Like, no,
but then we're going to turn around and do it a bunch. Because it's going to be that, and then after that, it's going to be us at Origins for Alpha Clash.
Yep.
And then we're going to have... are you going to the 4th of July event?
What's the 4th of July event?
I'll talk to you later, I guess.
Nobody loves me anymore. Fuck, I hate when this happens.
Because maybe there, but then we also have Gen Con, and so it's going to be a bunch. You went from like none to now you're stuck with me.
All of it, yeah.
Remember this moment where you're still longing for me to be around.
Yeah, I might regret this, but that's okay. I've had a lot of regrets in life, but no regrets here. At any rate, we're going to try to go through a little bit of what our expectations are for Nationals and for the Calling. Disclaimer, we're bad at this. That's really the disclaimer. So, we're bad at this. But I guess we can have opinions. Fuck it. So I wrote down a few different points here to kind of talk about. The first one is just your standard generic, what hero is going to be the most represented at each of the events? I mean, I think you're most represented in the calling, I think, will be Zen. I think you're most represented in nationals.
This might be
Nats.
the hardest Nats to predict that we've had to date, just because they have done such a good job with like hero balance, but also making them enticing. Right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of ones that are fun to play as well.
Yeah, I'm interested. I think personally, and
My gut says either KO or Zen for most represented.
I think Zen's the most represented at the calling. I feel like most represented in Nats will be probably Enigma.
Yeah, so my only reasoning for not selecting Enigma is that I think that Prism is more likely to cannibalize Enigma players than Katsu or Phi is to cannibalize Zen players.
Yeah.
And also, even though it's a very good deck, and Illusionist has always historically been a very popular archetype, it's still also difficult to play in Pilot. And
agreed.
And normally in the past, I would say like, hey, all the Dromai players are just going to switch to Enigma. But the reality is that the Dromai, despite being an Illusionist, the Dromai play pattern is not the same as the Enigma play pattern. Like, no. they are not at all like each other.
Yeah.
And so I don't think that there's going to be like, I do think that obviously some of the Dromai players will then move on to Enigma, but I don't think that there will be the mass exodus that we would have if it was another like ally based, board based type thing. Like, yes, you have the wards, but like some people got into playing Dromai because you got to control dragons, and that's really cool. And then it's like, okay, well now I'm, hitting you with shields, unless there's somebody who was, a Prism player pre-Dromai. Those are the ones that if they were like OG Prism into Dromai into Enigma, that makes sense to me. But if you're one of the people who are like, I like to play Dromai because dragons are cool, I don't think that all of those people will just like naturally move to Enigma. So yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be shocked, right? Like, I wouldn't be like, there's no way it's not Enigma. I just don't, my gut just says I don't think it will be. I feel like a lot of people are going to rely on comfort picks, and so I'm between KO and Zen right now.
Yeah, and I understand that. I do think that I think there's a lot of room for Enigma.
There's a lot of room for Enigma. I'll also say this. You know what? I'm going to say Zen. And I'm going to say Zen because I remember when Phi was very heavily represented. And at the, early stages of the game, I remember when Katsu was very heavily represented. And as much as we talk about, Illusionist players and how much they love their class and whatever, the reality is there is a large number of people that love Ninja as well.
Oh, yeah.
They don't get necessarily, I think, the attention because, again, they don't have the flashy marvels and whatever, but it's been a long time since Ninja was like as good as it is right now. So I really do think we're going to see a bunch of those people who like love Ninja are going to go back to it.
I could easily see that. Like, that does make enough sense to me as well.
And it might not even just be Ninja players. So if you think about play style, kind of, it's not 1-to-1, but if you're somebody who is like, I really liked playing Cheerios Briar, right?
Sure.
I get these big turns.
No channel
again,
Mount
it's
Heroic,
not, it's not exactly the same, but setting up channel Mount Heroic into a big go wide is kind of like setting up your big, crouching tiger swipe 30 damage turn, so I don't know. My gut just says Zen for some reason.
Okay. Which hero is best positioned in light of recent events?
Best positioned? I actually think it's Prism. I think if we're talking about best positioned to capitalize on the meta and whatever, I think that it is my ordering would be this. I think it would be Prism, then Riptide, then Enigma. And I think Prism is slightly better than Enigma right now when I'm talking about going into this, just because I think that with the Arclight Sentinel shenanigans and with some of the other things, she is going to be kind of better at some of the go wide stuff, right? Because yes, you still have the same problem that Enigma does, where the go wide stuff can be a problem, but I think that Prism handles it slightly better. Right, Arclight Sentinel can do a lot of work for you if you can get it going. Right, it's not a guarantee, but anything that hedges your percentages in your favor, I'm going to give the advantage there. So I'm going to say Prism, because I also think Prism's just got a good matchup into a lot of the heroes that are well positioned right now. Second, I'm going to say Riptide, because if I'm being honest, and I almost want to put Riptide 1, but I just think that the Prism players are going to be better than the Riptide players, because the Prism players have been doing it for a lot longer. But Riptide's very well positioned. You're good into KO, pretty good into the warriors. You can be very good into the ninjas, because you have a number of traps and ways to provide frailty tokens, and some of his legendary traps can just really shut down some of their big turns. Your trap triggers, I think, help you a lot into Enigma to supplement the turns where you don't have a Murkmire or whatever. So I think Riptide is very well positioned. Now, whether he does well, different story. But if you're just talking about positioning, I think that he's very well positioned. And then it's hard to not say Enigma, just because every time I see her, I feel like she's just doing dumb things. Even when she loses, it feels like she's cheating. That's the only way I know how to describe it.
Yeah.
And after seeing Noah pilot it, now again, Noah's a fantastic player, always has been, very deep in the illusionist sauce. But again, when you see a good player on a hero like that, it's hard for me to say hey, it's hard for me to imagine that thing ever losing, right? So
sure, yeah.
Those are my three. And honestly, they're all kind of interchangeable, but that's the order that I think I would give for right now. I would say Prism, Riptide, Enigma.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on Prism. It's the Apex Predator for Prism, for newer Prism, is a lot of times, your Reinars and Levias. And while I do think Levia is good right now and probably underplayed, Reinar just is in a lot of ways worse than KO in most of the things that they're trying to do. So I kind of there's no real threat to kind of keep Prism down. Now, granted, there are certain things like having a wall built of angels and shit like that against a ninja, and then you draw a no block hand and they trigger Shuko and it wipes your board, is outrageously bad.
Yeah.
But the I don't see that as being kind of the normal. I think they're going to put you under a lot of pressure, and they can do a lot of different things that keep that pressure coming. They can just, the Prism players can just present untenable states and are very good at it. And they are not, the things that would be threatening are just kind of not there. So I do agree with that. I also think Enigma is very good. The only reason I really put Prism ahead of Enigma is because I think that Prism's better in that matchup. I think Prism beats Enigma pretty, not necessarily handily or easily, but more often. I think Prism is probably favored into Enigma, but it, again, not exactly the easiest to say. And then as a third, it's probably just Zen. Like, the deck just presents giant damage turns and makes you have it. If you don't, whoops. And it can blow out pretty much any deck if it has those turns in sequence. Now, granted, you have, like, if I was going to have a fourth pick, would just be Azalea. Because Azalea has the ability to disrupt any of the game plans. They have Murkmire now that they play with. They have obviously Red in the Ledger and looping that into the ninja players. Like, there's just all kinds of stuff that they get to do that's just gross. They still are not. I mean, we just saw a Prism navigate the Azalea matchup and win it. Mm-hmm. So it's definitely not a 100%er by any stretch of the imagination, but it's still very winnable. It's winnable for Azalea, although they don't have a way to really pop what Prism's doing outside of Murkmire. But yeah, I would take, if I was going to pick 4, the fourth would be Azalea for positioning. I think that they are, I think that those are the 4 that I would look at and go, yeah, that's probably right. Next one is, who is your sleeper / dark horse?
Kano.
It's always easy to pick Kano.
It's always easy to pick Kano, but also I think that, again, so like when I'm looking at sideboards, just like I'm seeing a lot of people not remembering action points, I feel like more and more decks, we're hitting the ebb and flow, baby. I see more and more decks not including AB. Yeah. And it's not that I blame them. I'm seeing a lot of people go, okay, if Ninja is popular and this and that and whatever, like I have to prevent against the go wide physical strategy, and you only have so many inventory slots, right? So I think that we are hitting another situation where, you know, if a Majin or a Peter or whoever goes on a streak, like I'm not surprised. If I have to pick somebody not Kano, right? Or if I want to provide an honorable mention, I'm going to say Vincent.
Yeah. Like that's, if it's Illusionist land, that ends up mattering. If it's
Illusionist land, Vincent, if you get somebody who knows what they're doing, is potentially dangerous. I think that the problem with Vincent is that there are other matchups that you have to dodge and or just be a really like good player to get it through. But I think that that's a good sleeper pick, just because it is a deck that got better because of the meta shifts.
Yeah. Mine, oddly enough, is Levia. I think that Levia is good into the best counter deck in the format, which is Prism, and can present explosive amounts of damage. It doesn't block badly at all. Now it has, again, it's the same as anything else. If you get back-to-back 30+ damage turns out of a Zen, you're fucking dead. Like, sure. But there aren't really too many decks that are living through that. That just is what it is. Those are just turns. And you call it good. But with Levia, you get to, I mean, one, you got a great new card out of Mistveil. You have the ability to pop, you know, a lot of what Prism's doing, and you get to throw big damage turns, and then you hit your transforms, and you can then just turn the corner on virtually any matchup. So I don't see a whole lot of reason why Levia couldn't have a good run in this tournament. I think absolutely a good Levia player could put in work. I also feel like Riptide's in the same spot, where Murky Water is a dumb fucking card. Like, I mean,
that's the thing is, like, I look at a lot of Riptide's cards and I'm like, wow. Like, I remember when, like, Azalea turned the corner. Like, she just got, you know, just enough to, like, start being dangerous. And I feel like that's kind of where Riptide is now, and just people haven't, because like I'll tell you, the part of the reason that I'm as high as on Riptide as I am right now is I don't think people understand how frustrating it is to play against Dreadbore specifically until you do it. And given the way I expect like this meta to go, and given the way that people I think are going to be trying to prepare for new, something like Dreadbore will absolutely prey on those people, right? So
agreed. Okay. This is a weird one, but yeah, I think
it's not a weird one. I actually like this question.
Yeah, because I think you know what it means.
Yeah, I know what it means.
What do you think is the quote unquote secret deck for this event?
So for me, I'm going to give two, because obviously my first answer is the same thing I keep saying, which is Riptide. Ben actually joked with me because I was like, man, I keep saying like I feel like Riptide's well positioned, and then he sent me a message on Discord and he said Riptide is the worst kept secret in Fab right now. So I do think that it is something that people are quote unquote working on in secret and trying to put more reps on, because I think he is, the best he's ever been positioned. So if I'm saying him first, but I'm wanting to just throw something completely out of left field, right? Like true secret, like you don't see it coming sort of like preparation. I'm going to say Tekla for two reasons. One, I think that there's a lot of like diehard Tekla players that have been waiting for him to be good. And there's a lot of players that have been like waiting for him to get access to AB. And some things happened. One, he got AB, and two, as I was saying before, there's also a lot of people that are just playing physical oriented heroes. There's a lot of people just dropping AB from the sideboard anyway. And if we're going into a physical heavy environment, there is a world where Tekla with his like bajillion armor that he can keep like rewriting and whatever could do very well if it's somebody who knows what they're doing. I could see somebody make that into like a secret, I'm gonna try to block everything out. I deem this as like a secret, kind of the way, even though it wasn't like really a secret because it had been done a few times before, but when Briar won US Nats with the very defensive version, right? I think that a similar styled deck, where it's Tekla who is just like, I'm going to play all the Evos, and then I'm going to play a bunch of like, 3-for-7s, totally workable in my opinion. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, that's a true left field deck.
True left field. My real answer is Riptide, but true left field, Tekla.
Yeah, I think the quote unquote secret deck is there's a build of Enigma out there that people have been asked to keep under wraps, and that's why we've only seen one real refined Enigma like do really well, and it was Noah last week. And I think that's the quote unquote secret deck that teams have, is there probably like 3 different builds of Enigma. I think my true out there what the fuck deck, again, and it leans into the AB thing, is actually Viserai. There are some of these decks that are going to give Viserai time, and that's a bad idea. Like, it's Viserai into like Ninja. Okay, that's rough.
I don't think it's as rough as it sounds if it's the more aggressive Viserai. Like, there's a reason
can trade damage effectively.
I remember a time right after Star of the Show Living Legend when people said Mauve Sky's Viserai was a poor man's Star of the Show. And there is still some truth to that, right? Like, that is a deck that is capable of putting out a lot of damage if you go like the Mauve Skies, like, I'm just going to throw, 6 and 6 at you every turn, essentially, right? Like, that's annoying as hell.
Oh yeah, but you have to remember there's no Rosetta Thorn.
Right.
And so that does have an effect. But the ability for Viserai to just kind of switch gears to whichever game plan seems to be like the one that they need to be in, it's probably one of the more versatile decks at changing game plans. And I like that right now, especially right now. Again, you can't look at everything into a Doomblade scenario. So if anybody doesn't know, in Magic, there's always the gag of this new insane creature will come out with statted to hell, undercosted, overpowered.
It could be like a 1-cost 13/13 with 0 drawbacks, and then somebody like clockwork in the comments will be like, "Yeah, but it dies to Doomblade."
And so I don't want Zen to be the dies to Doomblade of this, where it's like, yeah, but it dies to Zen's pop-off terms. Every fucking thing dies to Zen's pop-off turns in succession. It just is what it is. Like, if Zen gets to have 2 of those turns, fine. Sure. You can't use that as...
who doesn't die to 2 pop-off turns for Zen? Kano. Because if Zen gets a pop-off turn, he dies to 1.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very true. If you guys don't follow Peter Budensick and Mark Johnson, aka Mo Bogsley, and Mask of Momentum on Twitter, you're missing out on some high quality content of Mobo trying to do something with new, and then Peter just vomiting his deck, like the whole fucking thing, and like for 1,000 damage or whatever it was.
Yeah,
enough to kill the training dummy on Talishar twice.
I mean, it looks sometimes when like Peter goes off, it reminds me of like early generation the Pokemon combo decks where you would like literally play your entire deck once you did the thing. Like that's what it reminds me of, where you just have you end with this massive pile of cards. And
like it was so bad that Elaine commented on the picture of Stoppy has a family, and my comment was just star had.
By God, that man is broken in half.
Broken in half. Somebody get a damn ambulance out here.
Somebody stop the damn match.
Yeah, Jim Ross. What a legend. Any other feelings just in general for US Nats? I mean, I'm honestly there for the vibes.
I can't remember the last time I was this excited about an event that I just knew going in I was not going to do well at. Every other event, I'll be honest, I never expect to do like well, but every other event I felt confident that I might like get to the bubble.
Sure.
This might be the first time where I'm like, I don't know if I will like not have scrubbed out after round 3. Like I'm legit looking at the side event schedule and I almost never do that. For the record, every other event, with the exception of Worlds, because I knew I wanted to hunt down my sigils, right? Every other event, I'm just like, look, if I scrub out, I'll worry about the side events then. Like, because otherwise I'll be in the back of my mind going like, oh, I've got a loss. Do I want to drop now for that thing? Like, I'd rather just not know and play till I know I'm eliminated, and then I'll worry about it. That's usually... This time I've already started looking at the side event schedule before I've even went, because I have not been this like just unconfident in a long time.
Yeah. I've resigned myself that I pretty much am there for the vibes more than anything. I do love being part of and around the community, just in general. Seeing the people that I get to see, 3 or 4 times a year, that type of, in person, obviously talk to them a lot more than that. But that's more what I'm there for. Not to, Grinder's going to grind and try to win this thing. The deck I want to play is pretty much non-competitive. I have tried different things to try to make Kasai competitive, but it feels like... Anyway. I might.
Here's what we'll do. You play Kasai, I'll bring Arachne, and then we'll play side events after round 3.
Sure. Because every change I make, I feel like I'm just losing percentage somewhere else. And it turns into a bunch of soup. Like, I'm not afraid of Prism with my normal build, but if I try to change it enough to have any sort of game into Enigma, nope. can't win Prism now. Or I make a different change to say, okay, I want to be sure I can beat these go wide decks. Well, suddenly I'm bad into insert deck. And it's like,
if I bring Arachne, I'm really good into everything not named Enigma, Prism, Kano.
Right.
And
Dex.
wait, and gotta be at least one more. There's one other one that I remember. I was like, oh yeah, that one's a little rough. It's escaping me now, but
yeah, I don't know.
Point
Azalea?
is,
I don't know.
Azalea is draw dependent.
KO?
I think that I'm probably favored. It's not that I can't lose to it, but I'm probably favored. But if I don't draw like the D reaction side and they get all the pumps, obviously, then I can fall too far behind.
I don't know if it's KO, but I guess like there's some benefit right now, maybe with Warrior being sort of on the downswing, that Assassins will just go, I don't need Scale Peeler now, right? And
so, fun fact, I was really good into Warrior and I still didn't run Scale Peeler.
I am not scared of Assassin playing Kasai until I see a Scale Peeler. And then I'm just like, fuck.
So what I did is I did the other route. I just packed my deck full of stuff that can block freely because on Arachne anyway. On Ozuri, I would still run Scale Peeler. On Arachne, because I am likely trying to like block with 3 cards and send a 0 for 4 anyway. A ton of my like blue block 3s are these like silly attack reactions and things where I can block and not trigger anything.
Yeah, I mean, and that's really good. The goal usually is if you're just sending a 0 for 4, it's black with dynamos and a card. And then pitch 1 card to play 1 card and attack with 2 swords and eat 3 cards out of your hand. So I'm trading 1 card for your 3 cards every turn. I win that race. Just saying. You can probably try to last ditch effort me, but
last ditch effort. What do you think I am? Some pleb like Dagon?
No, you're not as good as he is. That is very correct. But I'm also like, okay, and I know this is I want this deck to be a fucking meme, and for whatever goddamn reason, every time I like look over, it's doing well at like locals and shit. But somebody's gonna bring a Decimator Axe Bolton, and they are going to fuck somebody up.
Yeah,
because it's a nightmare.
I think Decimator anything is also just really annoying right now.
Yeah, it is. And so somebody's gonna just do something like that. And it's gonna be like, shit. But we'll see. I am hyped though. I think it'll be really interesting, as far as like the spread goes. And somebody's gonna have something that's on the rogue side that does well. Like that's just a given almost. So I really can't wait to see what people have come up with sort of in their vacuums and then also as teams. It's always interesting to see what teams have done, and how close and how homogenized the teams get, because I love when teams have like a team deck, but there are like 3 people on the team that just said, nah, miss me with that, and just play something else entirely. That's also entertaining to me.
My favorite team decks are when the decks are identical, but the sideboards are all different, and it's mostly because they don't matter. So like when Majin and Peter fill like the last 10 cards of their sideboard with stuff that makes people go, wait, what, huh, what?
Right. That was the in Magic, and again, I know we're not a Magic show, but enough people who listen to the show played Magic. That was always the Charbelcher Legacy Charbelcher gag. Is you would then put 15 cards that literally don't matter because you would never sideboard them in any way. Like the deck operated as a pure glass cannon. It only was going to ever do the thing to win, and you couldn't dilute it. So the sideboard was filled of like the most innocuous cards they could possibly find. So things like Anarchy and Sarpadian Empires Volume 7 and Thopter Squadron, or just shit that you're just like, Frankenstein's monster. That was always a fun one. Just slam Frankenstein's monster into the sideboard.
That's from the
Uncastable
dark,
bullshit.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uncastable bullshit. Just throw that in there. Whatever. Arcanist the Omnipotent was always one that people like to throw in there.
Well, I mean, that's like one of my favorite cards that was ever printed in Magic. Like when I would play Commander, you know, back then we were still calling it EDH. I would very often build around Arcanist just because he's fun.
Yeah.
Drawing cards is fun.
The only time that I ever saw a player do the actually sideboard in Charbelcher was a sneak and show player, and the Charbelcher player had randomly put 5 Eldrazi in his sideboard as a laugh and just boarded them in. And so sneak and show player slammed a Gristlebrand, thinking that that was going to be free and clear to win the game, and his opponent slammed an Emrakul. And his opponent just paused and went, I don't have a way to get rid of that. Oh shit. And they died.
Yeah.
Because they had to activate Gristlebrand X number of times, and Charbelcher killed them.
Yeah, I just liked... the main reason I used to play Arcanist a lot was because nothing made me happier than, like, I resolve mind over matter, and then I get to draw my whole deck.
Sure do. Whole thing.
Just, I have my deck now.
Yep, this is my hand. It is all the cards. Have a spell book out. Call it good. But is it your turn to do the realm read? I think it's your turn. I'm going to let you do the realm read.
Well, the realm is back at it. All right, I'm not going to actually do the read. I just don't have it in me. So I'm just gonna talk about this cool event I'm going to. It's in July. It's on the 20th of July, so that weekend prior to Pro Tour Amsterdam. It's going to be in New Jersey, Princeton, New Jersey to be specific. And it's going to be an amazing event put on by the Realm. It's a 5K. It is going to lead into their 50K at the end of the year. Yes, I did not stutter, $50,000. First place will get you a VIP invite to the 50K. It's also worth noting that the VIP invites are transferable. So, you know, if you win this one and you want to continue to play in the amazing Realm events, because why wouldn't you? Then you can hook up a teammate or something. And there is, you know, great stories with that. Mara, for example, at the big Realm event last year, essentially, quote unquote, bought her invite because she didn't want to show up and just do artist stuff, and then kept winning when every time she thought she was eliminated, she just kept winning. So what I'm trying to say is, you know, winning one of these transferable invites could come in handy. You could help out a friend. You can do whatever you want with it. It's yours, but it's going to be a wonderful time. I'll be there casting. I believe Logan will be there being jolly. No, that's right. He's gone.
I am?
Yeah, right? You are, isn't that the weekend that you are supposed to be in the underground fight ring?
Oh, no, my opponent backed out.
Oh, okay. So he will be there. My mistake.
It's a possibility. I just haven't made a decision. That's all. Maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
It is New Jersey. And
yeah, they just have above ground fighting there, right?
Parking lots. Yeah. Yep. That's mostly it. I think it's just time to light up some listener questions, and
yeah, we're skipping them, right? We're just going to light them on fire. That's what you meant by light up some. No? Oh.
No,
right,
we have some decent ones on.
I know
here.
we have some decent ones. Like Polish guy is going to lead us off with a great one, but I just wanted to say that you said light up some listener questions, and so I assumed.
That doesn't always mean fire. Like,
well, I was playing Fortnite with my kids today, and the thing you need to know about me whenever I play that game is that my favorite thing to do is light buildings on fire.
So you light buildings on fire. Monroe just hops in a car and drives around.
He loves this season because the season right now is all about driving cars around. The best way I can describe it is it's Mad Max themed without being Mad Max themed. Like you can put upgrades on your cars and put like, you know, turrets and grenade launchers on them so your friend can shoot while you drive around. And there's like nitro boosts, and they added this big desert area. So that's what I'm saying. It's like it's Mad Max without being Mad Max. So he loves it. He's just driving around like cackling as he's running people over and having a great time.
Stark is a loot goblin.
So. He is in fact a loot goblin. Yeah.
All right. So yeah, we're going to let Polish Guy Rich kick us off here. Long preamble here, but it gets somewhere. If I won the lottery, I'd still play card games. However, and may or may not post a lot in Cooking with Reinar. He does. Not only would I play, I'd run a food truck outside of the tournaments with my breakfast, burgers, and smoked food. So, would you still play card games if money was never an issue again? If yes, how would your relationship to them change?
I mean, this is such a silly question to me, and don't take this the wrong way because, like, I love you, Rich, but I don't play card games now because I need the money. They are a net negative on my wallet. All right. They drain me of money. So if I suddenly had more money, I'm not going to play them less. I'm just going to be more obnoxious, right? I'm going to buy all of the things, go to all of the events. I play card games because they bring me joy. And so if I ever got to a point in my life where I could just solely focus on the things that bring me joy, that means I'm just going to interact with it more, right? I like to travel and I like to play card games, and it turns out Flesh and Blood is a great outlet for both of those things. The biggest way that I think my relationship would change is that if I won the lottery, aka I'm like never working again and I don't have to like, actively think about money, I would just bring the family to more events. Like that would be the biggest thing that would change. I might show up like a couple days early and leave a couple of days late after every event, and I'd bring the wife and kids out, and then we would just like explore wherever the area was. Yeah, that I think that would be the biggest change, honestly.
Yeah. So I think I also love cooking. I also love to play golf. So the odds are that if money was just never an issue, no matter what I did, I would probably spend like weekdays going to different places around the world that are tangentially closer to events, and go play at a different course, for a new experience or whatever. Maybe take a lesson with somebody that, is world renowned, and just try to, do something because I enjoy it. I know it's kind of a stupid fucking game when you like really boil it down. You're taking a little ball and you're smacking it at a 3-inch hole that's, between 200 and 500 yards away. And you're trying to get it there with a crooked stick. Like, yep. It's fucking stupid, but it's also fun. So I would probably do that. And then at events, I would likely, wherever it is, find the Airbnb or equivalent with the largest chef's kitchen possible, and then just rotate invites to people for a prepared dinner. Like I would just spend, call it a Thursday and invite people to come in, on a day or two early. And then I would cook a massive meal for, 20 people or whatever. Just as a and then kind of rotate the guest list, have a couple of permanent spots, but otherwise, it's, hit me up and tell me if you would enjoy this. And then if you do, then you get put into the rotation, and then go from there, like something like that. That's more community oriented. The food truck idea is great, but I would also be at every fucking event. Like I would be Brody levels of just random travel.
Yep. I have one other thing I would add. I would, because I really love the characters and lore and whatever, and if I just had a ton of free time, I would love to it would start essentially, and this is why I say I'd have to win the lottery, right? Because it would have to start like freelance for free, but I would love to do a bunch of like writing and storytelling and then just keep sending stuff to James essentially and be like, hey, give me your feedback on this, but like I want to write more, because I'm always saying that like we love the game, but we want more from the world, right? And I mean, one of the best ways to make that happen is to just do it your damn self.
Yeah,
so
right.
you know, if I didn't have to work and I suddenly had an influx of free time, and especially if I'm like suddenly traveling to a bunch of events or whatever, like I could just take a laptop with me and do some writing. My wife is always getting on me that I should write more anyway, because she really likes it. So
I also wouldn't live in the United States.
Oh,
that's the other thing.
No.
I would not be here. Like, and you know, I'd be able to, you know, move somewhere that I'd want to live and potentially get much better medical care and maybe not die at 60. We'll find out. But that's neither here nor there. But I think that the way that I interact with the games wouldn't necessarily change a ton. What would just change is I would have a bigger reach to pull more people in, you know, like right now I try to do my best, and I know you do it too, to like we talk about making people feel welcome and everything else. I try to be inclusive and do different things with different groups of people when I'm at events. I want to spend time with different, you know, just these people that I don't see, and then other people that are like, hey, you know, what are you up to? What would you know, do you want to come get dinner with us? Absolutely. You know, let's go right now or whatever. That's the type of stuff I like to do. I just would want to expand that as best I could to like just make more people feel like that was, you know, like that was something really cool, and I'm really glad I got to do that, you know? You know, like spending time in Hartford with Az and Greg and Jesse Harper and, you know, all those, you know, just crews of people that otherwise I wouldn't have spent a ton of time with. I mean, especially Az living in England. And Greg just doesn't go anywhere, fucking dick. But that's what I would do. I'd pay for Greg to just always have a seat in the airplane, but it would always be in coach, because he doesn't deserve nice things. Where episode, motherfucker. But yeah, I think that's probably the biggest change for me. Okay, ready for the next one?
Sure.
Next one's from Pax Anus. He wrote this as, couple questions for the backlog. Well, buddy, sorry. We are not backlogging. I'm trying to stay ahead of the backlog because Bryn called me out. Questions are, what are the best recommendations for offloading surplus cards? Thoughts on speculative card economy posts? Are TCG stonks good for the game or nah? So, starting with the first one, I wish I knew. I have epic amounts of bulk sitting around. Most of the time, the answer is usually to give it to new players, but a lot of what I have is kind of outclassed to a degree, and or easy to acquire type stuff where nobody needs, you know, 24 copies of Yellow Wounding Bull or whatever, or you know, it's just not. It's not a thing. And so a lot of times you can build commoner decks and stuff like that for people. I'm also somebody that time is not something I have a ton of. Charmer and I joke all the time. Well, not joke. We talk all the time about how the two things that we always need more of are time and resources.
Yep. And it just boils down to those two things. It's so simple.
It really does.
Just time and resources. It's all I need.
Yeah, if you can give me those, I'll be fine. But yeah, I wish I had a good answer for that. I like, you know, if you have a local game store that wants to grow a community and is interested in being able to build commoner decks and stuff like that, and will accept your bulk. I mean, offloading, if you're looking to sell bulk, ain't gonna happen. You'll be years away from that probably being a real thing. If you're talking surplus cards, as in like surplus cards with value, there are different avenues. There's the purple Discord. There's buy, sell, and trade channels in like our Discord. There's also just great vendors like the Realm that you can hit up that have buy lists. So there are different ways to do that. Otherwise, player to player, there's the Facebook Marketplace. You can put things up on Twitter. Some people do that. But social media is probably your best bet to get the best bang for your buck. Just don't get scammed. That's the hardest part, is that don't get scammed.
The best player-to-player trades I've done were through the Facebook Marketplace, as far as anything outside of just locals.
Yeah.
But much like you, I don't have a good series of advice because I am just like notoriously lazy. So usually when I have a bunch of like bulk Majestics and things like that, I just take them to the Realm or, whoever. And I say like, here's my stack of stuff. Tell me what I get in trade. And then I pick out the things I know I want. And then I just call it good. And I will probably do something similar again on my way to Minnesota, because I know Doa and I are working on some trades because he wants some cool Zen stuff and I want some cool new stuff. And so we're going to do some swapsies. And so I was like, well, I'll just take a bunch of other stuff too and plan on, raiding the Realms booth again and doing whatever. As far as like bulk commons, like Logan was saying, yeah, you can just take them in and literally just donate them to a local store and say, hey, like, I want to donate these under the impression that like you just give them away to new players as they need them. If you have time, then you could do the one step further thing, which is, as Logan was saying, you build commoner decks, right? So like I have a few commoner lists that I have saved, not even just because like I think they're good or anything, but just because they're easy to put together. And I think that if you pre-package them, like if you pre-package a commoner deck and then you make like 15 of them and you go up to your local game store, you can literally just say, hey, if somebody asks about the game, feel free to just give this to them. And your local game store is like not going to tell you no because it's free. Like they have no skin in the game.
They love free.
Or you can just keep a bunch on you for teaching the game and then as like a nice gesture. So you could be like, hey, I've got some, decks made out of commons to teach you the game. And then you play the game. And then when they're done, you just be like, hey, and you can keep these too so that you can play with friends when you get home, right? Like people will love that. But obviously that requires the time to put them together, but that is the best use. Lately I've been playing with Stark because he wants to learn the game. So we've been using old Blitz decks. We bought the new Part the Mistveil 3 Blitz deck bundle as well. But I've also built commoner decks, right? So I didn't have any of the Uprising Blitz decks because I didn't buy any from that set, but I have a ton of commons. So like I built him a common Phi deck and I built a common, Icelander deck. And I'm going to make him a Dromai deck, but that one's, I think, harder to do with commons just because the thing that makes her cool is the dragons, and a lot of those are rares. But the good news is like rares are basically bulk anyway. So if it's just for teaching new players, you can, throw those in too. But yeah, that's what I've been doing with them.
Yeah. Next part of the question was thoughts on speculative card economy posts. I'm assuming we're talking about your Rudies of the world, and the like, and their sort of speculative ramblings. I don't care. Especially in Flesh and Blood, the game still has that super new feeling to it where anything can swing to pop a price. So being speculative through like the economy, like if you're talking about the manipulation posts, I just ignore them. It's probably to my detriment. But at the end of the day, I'm not acquiring cards necessarily to try to just make a living. I did that in Magic for a bit and was pretty decent at it. I still have a box of shame. Don't worry. Everybody does that's ever tried to live that life. Mainly because it's easy to be wrong. I mean,
It's
sometimes
also
you
easy
read
to
a
be
card.
really right, aka Mikey Torek.
Oh yeah, he's due.
Well,
But
he wasn't even just due, but I'm still laughing at his like Arclight Sentinel thing.
yeah, where he bought every ALS in the room.
Like, yeah. For those of you who don't know, it's literally everyone in the room. He went to every vendor and said, "Do you have Arclight Sentinels?" They said yes, and then he bought it. And they were like $1 at the time, and then I think he sold out when they were like $3 or whatever. But he literally like more than doubled his money easy just by doing that. And it was one of those like, yeah, like I respect the game, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, but that's not like manipulative necessarily. That's the
speculative
yeah
side.
It's
Now,
the posts that are meant to like make a number go burr or whatever. If you're talking about those posts, like I said, I just largely ignore them. I want the things I want, and that's really it. I know it's reductive, but I don't have another way to put it.
It's not reductive. I think that's the way that it should be. I'm very vocal about like being anti-speculation. I think that a healthy secondary market is very important for trading card games. But I think that it's important when that secondary market is also done between people invested in the game, right? If you are a player, or, even if you're mostly like largely a collector, but you're doing it because like it's the hobby that brings you joy or whatever, I think that is when the secondary market is usually at its best. And I'm not like, game stores are a bit different because like they have to have enough stock, right? So they need, when it comes to the more expensive stuff, some level of bulk. So I don't really count them in the speculative market. The things that I am usually against are the things like in alpha investments where the idea is I'm going to buy a bunch of this product and then I'm going to sit on it in hopes that it skyrockets in value later, because those people are not actively participating in the community. They are treating it like a security, right? Like a stock or a bond or whatever. It's their investment. So they buy it and they sit on it and they do nothing with it. And like, it might be a way that they make money, sure. But to me, that is reducing the accessibility of the game. And that is also not just reducing the accessibility, but let's say that the prices then do skyrocket. And we saw that in the very early years of Flesh and Blood, that creates that negative view of like, it's too expensive to get into. So it's off-putting to new players, or you get like, it's a pump and dump, or it's a scam or whatever. And so that generates those negative images as well. And that solely happens because of the speculative side, right? When people are saying buy this because you'll make money, not buy this because the game is fun. Right? If people are saying buy this because it's going to double in value and not buy this because you're going to have a good time, it just sends a different message. So I am usually very vocal against truly and strictly speculative, like card game investment. I think there's a big difference between that and just being a collector. And, prices go up when people want to collect stuff. Like that's the nature of collectibles. That's fine. But, And I will say I'm probably a little bit tainted by it as well, just because I did, many moons ago, I worked for a game store. I worked for a local comic and game store. And it doesn't just even happen in trading card games too, right? It happens in comics all the time.
Oh, yeah.
There's a reason that, number ones for series or whatever are widely like, one, overprinted, but also overbought because everyone wants to buy a number one and sit on it, which is actually really funny because sometimes that comes back to bite you. Logan and I have talked in the past about NYX number 3 specifically.
Yeah, that's the one.
Where they're like, ha ha ha.
NYX...
there's a big drop off after 1 and 2. And so, by the way, we're going to just introduce one of the, most iconic characters of the last 20 years.
Yeah, it's NYX 1 and 2. You can get like both of them for like $20 total. And then a copy of NYX 3. I guess I haven't looked up what it is in a while.
I haven't looked up in a while.
Several $100s.
I remember like being happy when they were going for like 50 a pop, just because.
Oh, it's no.
So you have to remember this was like 20 years ago. So like 20 years ago is when the first, I think, hit 50 a pop or whatever. And I was just happy because I was buying a lot of NYX because I just liked the book.
It's a really good book. I enjoy it. NYX 3. We're just going to do this live because this will be the second time I've done this today. Um, this I'll find mostly graded, but that's fine. So the most raw comics that are in decent condition.
A 9.4, it looks like is around
500 was the
between
last
5
one.
and 6. Yep.
A 9.8 is, which is pretty close to flawless, is 1,250.
Yep. I see another 9.8 at 1,300 even. Yeah, that's.
Yep. And I have, mine is a 9.6. So 650. Sure. I bought it off the rack and to read it.
Yep. I had it in my poll. It wasn't like it's a thing, and then I was just like, oh hey, I know who this is.
I liked the book.
I liked the book. I buy the thing that I want. Weird, right? Like that's
and then but then I encapsulate it sometimes just because it's like, okay, I can read this wherever now, and it's valuable and it looks pretty. Like I like the way that comic slabs look. Sue me.
Yep.
But
I like the way that Marvel heroes look. Sue me.
Sure. Like the comic books that are encapsulated around here, almost every single one of them, I bought them to read them. The only exceptions are the stuff I have that is actually with artwork on it. So like comic remarks and stuff like that, because you just want to protect the art. So like blank covers that have sketches on them. And then like I have a Harley Quinn anniversary special that actually has Paul Dini, so the guy that fucking created Harley Quinn, has a sketch of Harley Quinn on the cover that he did and signed. Well, I want that protected just because it's a piece now. Like it's not just the book it's on. And that changes things a bit for me too. But for the most part, the vast majority of the comic books I own are not slabbed. They're there for me to read when I want to. That's all. And yes, like the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, probably 25 long boxes of comics that I have sitting in this house are just all things I bought to read. Okay. Last part of the question, are TCG stonks good for the game or nah? Loaded question. So I know that I've had this discussion before on the show, and it still holds true today, for me at least. And I know that to a degree, and maybe not the same extent, Derek at least agrees in part, is that collectability is vitally important. You need the 3 C's in order for your card game to survive. You need competitive, you need casual, you need collectible. You need those 3 things. If you are missing one of them, your game's growth will not, you will not realize the full potential that your game can grow to. Flesh and Blood's struggle right now is casual. Collectible, they've gotten very good at. They understand what hypes people up and are very good at getting people excited with few hiccups, right? They're very good at competitive. They're the best competitive card game circuit around. Like point blank, they're doing it better than anybody else right now. And so they've got those 2 things covered. They have a casual problem. You don't hear of a lot of kitchen table Flesh and Blood. Now, you also back before like EDH became really a thing, that like a widespread, you didn't hear about a lot of kitchen table Magic, but it happened a ton.
Right.
I'm not sure that's the case with Flesh and Blood, but circling back to the stonks portion of this, that's where collectible comes in. So attaching a value based on demand to a stock supply is a good thing. That's what keeps the collectability engine running. If you were to say Snag isn't going to be our example because it's kind of the permanent fucking example anymore. Like, let's say that when Snag became a $40 card back in the chain meta of Monarch, And LSS's reaction was, we just need to print more snags. And so they printed snags and put them on their own website for sale. That's very bad. Because now you are to the way that that is an accepted practice in TCGs, you are introducing stock into the system specifically to just profit on this single card that you can sell under the value the market has ascribed to it and make money, but you're going to drop the value of every single other one, limiting collectability, one of our important 3Cs. Now, like, again, we can look at Snag again. And so Snag turned out to be unplayable as soon as Chain was not, the GOAT anymore, and went from $40, where the fuck it was, to like 65 cents. Then, most recently, they changed how Snag works. Snag is no longer 65 cents. I haven't looked in a couple of days, but since we're just doing this live the entire show anyway, I might as well. So Snag is currently $17 per copy. So I'm glad I own them.
Snag is the GameStop stocks.
Yeah. It's actually $19. That's oof.
I was going to say that one had shipping.
Yeah, for the cheapest, with shipping included, is $18.75. Because now it affects a different swath of cards in a different way. And yeah, it's real good now. But that's something that is now what's the best way to put this? Natural part of the curve for this card. Super sought after to not super sought after to super sought after again. The stock really hasn't changed. If nothing else, there are probably more snags that are open and exist in collections than when it was printed, than in the chain meta. But that's a natural curve of playable to not playable to playable again. And that's the type of thing you're looking for in collectability. Then there's the high-end collectability of things like Marvels and shit like that. Completely different subject, but still cool. Like, that's just a good incentive for people to want to open packs. Otherwise, no one would open packs. They would just wait for stores to do it and then buy singles out of the stores. Simple. Yeah, that's my roundabout answer to that question. So I'm going to say yeah, but nah.
I'm just going to say nah.
Yeah, you're good on saying nah. I know your opinion. We have a slight difference, and I respect it. Moving on. What is the best way to keep the game interesting? I live an hour from the armories I attend and struggle to stay active between competitive seasons. One thing I'm trying to do is build a local scene, but have not had success.
I don't have a good answer for you because I haven't been necessarily in this situation. I'm blessed to both have like locals if I do need to go to them, but also, friends like Logan and others where if I need to play a game digitally, I can find somebody. And then even when that's not available, because sometimes I like to practice at degen hours, there's, Talishar, but that's not the same because I'm using that to supplement my in-person experiences. It's not me using that in place of, right? The entire point of Flesh and Blood is to play in the Flesh and Blood, and it sounds like that's just not something at the moment available very easily. So I would say continue to try to build the local scene. Don't give up on it. Sometimes the right people just haven't walked into the store at the right time, or whatever the case may be. But I would reach out to either other people who play the game, or I would look to like Greg, aka Darth Prentice, as a great example with what he's doing with like camera games and his ultimate pit fight stuff that he's been doing remotely as well. I think that's a good way to still engage with the game and to do so in a fun, lighthearted manner while you are trying to find footing for in-person games, because that as best as you can comes the closest to mimicking that real gameplay experience when you're doing like webcam games with a group of people that are, just looking to have a good time. So, and if you're not familiar with what I'm talking about, Greg, friend of the show, does do some things on Twitch where they play like Ultimate Pit Fight, and I think he's also done like some unofficial PvE stuff that they've been working on, just all sorts of fun stuff, and it's usually done via webcam. So I would recommend checking that out.
Yeah, I just started a podcast. I don't know. I don't recommend that though. Especially
podcasting leads to people like me. I also would not recommend.
Podcasting leads to 132 weeks in a row
132
of doing this shit. And like tonight, or I should say today, tonight I played golf all day and then was beat to shit. Ducked in, caught an hour and a half nap, ate dinner, spent some time with my wife, hopped onto here. I had other friends that wanted to watch game 2 of the NBA finals. And I was like, I just had to say, nah, because I'm going to go to Kansas City to watch a baseball game tomorrow night. And so I can't record tomorrow night. So something had to give. It was either, go watch game 2 with my mates and hang out, or keep the streak alive. And I chose the streak because fuck my life. That's why I chose the streak. Don't start a podcast, or do. I guess I'm not your dad. If you want to try it, certainly hasn't been terrible for me, I guess, outside of the Derekking of it all. But honestly, so we have this problem of ebb and flow here a lot. We started with, in reality, 2 shops that did armories. That has ballooned into 4, 5 if you count, like 5 within a 40-minute drive. But in the metro area of where I live, it's 4. But it's also cannibalized attendance a little bit. The only one that is fairly consistent is the one that operates on Saturday nights. Everybody else kind of bounces around. When we started, we would get 6, 4, but we would all be committed to play. And then the best thing to do to build these scenes, and I know a lot of people hear this and they say that's corny or whatever, and that's fine. Have your opinion. But a lot of times the best way to build a community is go to your local game store, sit down and play. People will ask, what's that? Or especially with the fact that Flesh and Blood art just doesn't fucking miss anymore. They'll be like, oh, that's sweet. What is this? Or whatever. We have made a lot of people Flesh and Blood players just from that minor interactions, just because we were playing the game. And that's the biggest thing is, and I don't know what you have for stores. We're blessed here with great stores run by good people, that have clean and giant spaces for people to play. So I know most places aren't that, like, our smallest game store is small. Our smallest, like, it goes from like a kind of a small game store that can fit like maybe 25, 24, something along those lines, to the next one can easily fit, 64. The next one can fit, just right around 100, and the next one can fit 200. So we can fit fucking battle hardens in our game stores here, and they are well lit and well put together. And I get it that people don't necessarily have that, but if you have a space that you can play that is public, do that. That will help. I promise you. Last one's from Blazestorm, value member of the Patreon. Blazestorm may have been blazing a bit more than normal, because he's asking about a card that I don't know why he's asking about it. But question is Chorus of Iron Song good now? / does that mean Dawnblade Dory is good in this meta? Now, there was a Dorinthia that made top 8 of the Singapore Battle Hardened. Chorus of Iron Song's text reads, it's a yellow, block 3, Majestic from Dusk Till Dawn, costs 1. It's a Dorinthia specialization. It reads, fuck Illusionist, Unity. When this defends together with a card from hand, create a courage token under any number of heroes control. Now, the fuck Illusionist text is, until end of turn, target Dawnblade gets +1 power, and damage this would deal can't be prevented. So that's a ward buster, is what it is. Now, if it was just so easy as I only need to beat Illusionists, this is probably great. There's a problem with that. You need to beat more than Illusionists.
What?
It's true.
No.
I mean, okay.
I don't believe you.
What don't you believe?
That you need to beat more than Illusionists. Lose all your other games, but make every Illusionist miserable.
Okay, now if everybody just agreed to that, I think the world would be a better place.
Yeah, all right. See? I knew I was right.
But I will say that if Dawnblade Dory is playable, this card is probably playable. Mainly because you would put this in against Prism, and you'd put this in against Enigma 1,000%. Is Dory playable? I'm not sure on that one. Now, if this didn't read, if it didn't have the text Dorinthia specialization or target Dawnblade on it, and was target weapon, that might make it into other decks, because being a yellow for Kasai is great. And it's an attack reaction, so it's even better. So it blocks through overpower. Bolton would fucking love this card if it didn't have to be on a Dawnblade. Like, this going on a Decimator is dumb. But the Dory specialization and Dawnblade make it. It's also shitty because it's not a fucking Shiana card. Shiana doesn't get a Dawnblade. Makes me sad. Anything to add, Derek?
So the question, right, is it good now? And I would say it's as good as it's always been.
It's good as it's ever been.
Right. Good as it's ever been, but as good as it's always been, right?
Yeah, same thing.
It's not bad, but it's not, I don't think it's like a spicy new game-breaking matchup changer, if that makes sense. That's the only thing I would add. I would say, like, it's fine, it's just not a matchup changer. It doesn't move the needle more than, you know, any other option, I guess, at any given point.
It blocks 3.
Right, but is that moving it more than your other block 3s?
No.
Then my point stands.
Yeah, your point is valid and accepted. Yeah, that's all we got. I think it's time to thank patrons. What do you think?
Yes, we should pug our patrons.
We should pug the patrons. I'm going to pug them so fucking hard. Let's start with our associate producers. We have Andy, Sindra, Donnie K, Jacob, Kenny, Larry, and the Salty Sea Cat. Our executive, that wasn't even a word. Producers on up are Alex, Blazestorm, valued member of the Patreon, and apparently rampant Dawnblade enjoyer. Dom Lance, good thrust. Matt Tutokes, Pox Honest, Trevor, Papa Mike, Phil, Rich, and Sunny. If you are interested in becoming a patron of Flesh and Pod, you can go to patreon.com/fleshandpod. The link is in the show notes. There are, I think it's 6 tiers. I keep saying that number. Hopefully it's right. To choose from. Any paid tier gets you to FAP After Dark. That'll probably be sometime after Origins, as our schedules are turbo fucked until after Origins. But yeah, any paid tier gets you into that. If you need to contact the show, you can reach out to us at fleshandpod@gmail.com. You can hit us up on Twitter at fleshpod. You can go into the YouTube comments. If you are watching this on YouTube and you haven't yet, please like and subscribe. If you're the illusionist person that keeps downvoting, thank you for not downvoting the last one. I really do appreciate your restraint.
But I hope you're okay.
And yeah, and I hope you're okay. That's
I
actually
hope you didn't
true.
like miss the downvote because you're in the hospital or something. Because even though you dislike our videos, I still want the best for you.
We care about you. The easiest way to get a hold of the show, actually, or any of us, is just through the Discord, and that link is also in the show notes. It's free to join. You do not need to be a member of the Patreon or anything else. You can just click the link, join, and commence the shit talking. Derek, where can they find you?
In the Discord is a great place to find me.
Also,
you
US Nats.
Find me at US Nats in Minnesota this next weekend. Probably walking around the floor because I have scrubbed out. You can find me on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube. I'm either at that Charmer, Charm3R, or on Twitch and YouTube, it's just Charmer. So it's a good place to find me.
You know, I love the fact that you no longer have your veil of anonymity. Like, people know who you are now.
I think
feel like
you're only saying that because we haven't been to an event together in a while.
I mean, that might be true.
In the wild.
It's been a while since somebody walked up to me and said, "Excuse me, Charmer." So
I will say, one thing that has helped, as weird as it sounds, the thing that has been peeling it away is actually Ice Cave Radio.
Oh yeah, sure.
The number of people who are like, "Hey," like they'll hear my voice or something and say, "Hey, are you Charmer?" or whatever, because they recognize me from that, is actually kind of mind blowing to me, just because I'm so used to the exact opposite experience. So, yeah.
You couldn't let me
happen. It does still happen.
You couldn't let me have one win. You couldn't let me have one little
I'm gonna
shred.
let you have one win when we get paired against each other at the calling.
That's fair.
In the 0-2 bracket.
Yep. If you need to reach me personally, it's at Logan Peterson on Twitter. Otherwise, the Discord is your best bet. DMs are open to anybody I share a server with. So far, no one's ever abused that. It's kind of nice. Like, it's a nice feeling. I enjoy it. Yeah, I guess that's our show. Anybody that's at coming to US Nats, feel free to kind of walk up, talk to us if you see us around. I promise I am as affable in person as I am on this show. That may or may not be a good thing for you. I don't know. But you'll probably see me with Derek a good amount of the time. You'll see me talking to just random people. Usually around the Realm booth seems to be where the congregation heads. So, yeah, you'll see us around there too. We're just walking billboards for the Realm half the time anyway. But, yeah, that's our show for the week. So, thank you for listening, and we'll be back next week for 133 in a fucking row. Bye.